Israel, the workers don't actually dominate the government, but they do tend to have the upper hand in every place of work, including the theatre. This means that the humblest scenery shifter earns more than the greatest character actor. This seems to be dictated by the law of supply and demand. Nobody wants to be an unskilled scenery shifter, and for the actor's part, one can never make enough sacrifices for one's art. Occasionally, the actors rise up against the totalitarian rule of the working classes, but this usually ends as hopelessly as Hamlet's great soliloquy. I popped into my usual coffee bars at Fileman home. I think he for once wasn't there, but Yarden Podmenitski unfortunately was. Too late. I was trapped.
Ephraim, sit down. Have a drink.
Look, you look tired. I won't bother you.
Now sit down. Have a drink. If you promise not to write about it, I'll tell you what's up. 2 espressos and another bottle of Iraq.
I can promise nothing.
Mundek.
What's Mundek?
You've not heard of Mundek? He is the theatre's oldest scenery shifter, and if I die one of these days, it will be down to Mundek.
You see Gorbachev's statement to the press?
He's a mountain of a man.
No, he's quite short. I met him.
I meant Mundek. He has boundless energy and no teeth. I don't know how he got involved in the theatre in the first place. He says he founded it. Who knows? I don't want you to think I'm an old reactionary, but sometimes this Mundek makes me long for the old capitalistic system. I have the whole country eating out of my hands. I am fated wherever I go, as you know. But this Mundek, he treats me like an extra. I was reciting my great monologue from Richard II. You know the one. Your soul's vagrant scream tears me, sire, who would be king amongst mortals and steel blade carved out, what uttering 100 deaths I die. As I say, I was reciting my great monologue when suddenly, just 2 yards away, behind the battlements, Mundek blows his nose and shouts out to his chums, Kinder, Esche von Meersplein Abyssal Curtain. He asked them if they wanted to play cards in Yiddish. It's the only language he speaks, and in a voice so loud it carried to the gods. I mean, how could I then continue? How could I throw myself, steeped in grief and transcendental wisdom, on my father's grave, when I and all the audience could see Mundek and his chums sitting atop the executioner's axes on the battlements, playing cards as if they owned the place? What would you have done?
Tell them to stop.
Oh, Ephraim, sometimes you speak like a half-wit or a theatre critic. You think these people are reasonable. This Mundek, for example, brings with him to the theatre every night a loaf of bread, a quarter kilo of cheese, and 2 huge horseradishes. In the middle of the second act, when I'm trying to seduce the princess, I kneel to give her the keys to the city. And Mundek bites into his horseradish. The noise is so loud you would think you are on the runway of Ben Gurion Airport, to say nothing of the smell. I implore him, Mundek, for pity's sake, please try to have your dinner earlier or later, at least not during my love scene.
I can't help it. I always have my dinner at 9:30.
Is your dinner more important than my love scene?
Yes.
And don't stomp around during performances.
You can't tell me what to do.
You little worm. Who is the star here?
How much do you earn?
150 after tax.
250 excluding overtime. Damn.
It's not just the horseradish. Do you have to light up behind the altar when I am creeping stealthily across the stage in the dark, dagger in hand?
There's nowhere else to do.
Well, at least turn your back when you strike the match.
Like you never hurt anybody.
And in the intermission,
I can do what I please.
do you have to sit in my throne reading your Yiddish newspaper?
What are you doing the intermission?
You left the bloody thing there twice last week. Does Richard II read Yiddish?
How should I know? You're the actor.
And you left your fag burning in my crown. There was smoke coming out of my head. The audience was laughing at me.
So?
I am the king, you jackass.
King? What king? You're Yarden Podmenitski, hand actor. Bah! It's late. Good night.
Can you believe it? 37 years in the theatre, and he doesn't understand what's going on stage. I considered suicide, but I will not let that man drive me out of my mind. Do you know what I did?
Will I?
I went to see Saltzman, the manager. I told him, it's either him or me. He tried to calm me down, but I pressed him. And he told me Mundek won't live forever. Do you know what he did?
He fired you.
It was a rhetorical question.
So what did he do?
He fired me. I asked him, is Yarden Podmenitski less important than Mundek?
And what did he say to that?
Of course not. But he can't fire Mundek. If he did, the whole stage crew would go on strike. And he'd have to pay him 25,000 in severance pay. Saltzman is right. We actors would perform for nothing, but try keeping Mundek and his chums from their overtime check for half a day.
Try not to think about Monday.
He said I was fired at the end of the run. But anyway, Mundek must have heard about me going to see the manager, because the next night, as I stood over the graves of my nephews, I suddenly disappeared off to the left on the revolving stage. I was in hospital for 2 days, and now every time I think of that night, I break out in a trembling sweat, and it's all because of Mundek.
Really? Try not to think about Monday.
Oh, if only. For the first time ever, he was off sick last night. It was so quiet backstage, it made me nervous. I was so used to the stomping, chomping, coughing, to say nothing of the horseradish. Can you believe what I said at my father's deathbed? Your soul's vagrant scream tears me, sire, who would be king amongst mortals and steel, blade carved out, kingdom felt, ship's flame, abyssal curtain. Uttering 100 deaths I died. Luckily, no one noticed. So great is Shakespeare's genius. But I, Yarden Podmenitski, am telling you that there is something infinitely tragic about the obsession that this Mundek has become for me.
I left the overblown thespian sobbing into an espresso heavily laced with arak, and tried to summon up some sympathy. I tried to resist the temptation of rushing back to my trusty typewriter to commit it all to paper. As usual,